For all intents and purposes, the Minnesota Twins have the AL Central on lock. But what do they need to do before the end of the season? Now that's a different story. So today, we'll put together our checklist for what the Twins still have to accomplish before the postseason. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warner. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As a reminder, we always say this, but be active in the comments on YouTube. We'd love to chat with you, hang out with you, and all that fun stuff. Too, if you have questions for the show, please feel free to get them to me however you can at Brandon_Warren, at Locked On Twins, hit the DMs and all that fun stuff. Also, too, Locked On Twins post-game minutes, check those out on the shorts column on YouTube. Today's show brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed, and more on that in a little bit. But the Twins play the Rays at Target Field. Game 2 of the series is on Tuesday. It's a 6:40 first pitch, and it's Joe Ryan against Zach Littell. So a couple of pitchers facing their former organizations. You can catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Twins. And as we're recording this, we're kind of sweating out if the Guardians are going to pull off a win in San Francisco. But in the meantime, we are working on the checklist for your Minnesota Twins. They're going to win the division. Like, there is virtually no question about it. Now, after the loss, but before, pending the Guardians' result, Twins were 99.5% on FanGraphs. So magic number 12 will become 11 if the Guardians lose. By the time you listen to this, you will know for sure if they have. But we have some priorities. We have some different things that we are looking at as far as things the Twins need to accomplish before they get to the postseason. Now, number one on that list, this is a list of 6 things. They are not in order. They're just put into groupings for talking points to get us through the show. So don't feel like I'm prioritizing one over the other. But first, not necessarily foremost, get the bullpen in order. Now, what's important first and foremost to me right now? Actually, maybe not as important as getting Jhoan Duran pitching as well as he can, but getting Brock Stewart back. Brock Stewart threw a live bullpen on Friday. Didn't have any issues. Touched 99, according to Darren Wolfson of KSTP. That probably to me means he's pretty close to getting a rehab. I would say a couple outings with maybe St. Paul, and he should be ready to go. And that was also Friday late last week. So, there's been certainly a little bit of progress in the meantime. But Brock Stewart, obviously, in that hierarchy is going to be very important. When I look at how I would power rank this bullpen going into October, I think you have to have Jhoan Duran as your number one with a bullet. Now, if Brock Stewart is healthy, do you want Stewart? Do you want Jax? I went with Stewart. Jax, to me, I love Jax's repertoire. The fastball with the power, slider, sweeper. But to me, I just favor Stewart by a little bit. That added velocity, that added all that good stuff. Sorry, I'm distracted. The Guardians just had a player thrown out at third on a bunt, so you'll love to see it. Anyway, I think Stewart, if he's healthy, then Jax. Then it comes down to Caleb Thielbar versus Emilio Pagan. And I mean, if we really get down to the nitty-gritty, the power rankings don't matter. Thielbar is going to face different types of hitters than Pagan and vice versa. But how much do we trust Pagan? Is it more than Varland? Or not Varland, sorry, Thielbar. We'll get to Varland in just a second. I'm not sure where I'm at with that. More so because I really like Caleb Thielbar. He's been touching 95 with that fastball. What I really like is when he spins a good, tight breaking ball, and he kind of opens up late. He hides the ball. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. Another good example of it, and this might be a sore subject, is Danny Coulomb on Baltimore. Danny Coulomb does a very similar thing. He just doesn't have the velocity that Thielbar has. But it's still effective because he hides the ball, and it makes it very difficult to tell if it's a fastball or a breaking ball coming out. So I'm probably leading Thielbar ahead of Pagan, but again, it's probably situational. At that point, we get into some really, really interesting names. Louis Varland has looked interesting, and he did give up a homer, but the velo looks good. The stuff looks good. And there's still a couple weeks to figure out a role for him. But I'm interested to see, because, and we'll talk about the rotation a little bit, in the playoffs, there's a tendency to go short, 5 and dive, or even less with starters. In that case, and I would assume that would be with, well, if Bailey Ober comes back and is in the rotation, a piggyback with Louis Varland could make a lot of sense. But just having Varland there for multiple innings as a go-between, let's say you get 4 innings from Sonny Gray, like he did tonight, you're going to need a bridge to your bullpen. And so you don't use up all those guys. Maybe Varland is your multi-inning reliever. Maybe Kenta holds that role. Maybe it's him and Varland. Maybe it's those two and Paddock. Chris Paddock started a rehab with Low A Fort Myers, and then was moved up to Wichita. He seems to be getting really close. With Wichita, he made his first rehab appearance. Oh, I'm sorry, I have the wrong one pulled up. He was starting for Wichita on Monday night. So we would assume if he threw 2 2/3 for the, I almost called them Miracle, the Mighty Muscles. So I'm just going to pull it up because I want to make sure I have the right information here. Where I pull my other stuff from had his last start. So pitched for Wichita. He pitches on Tuesday. My mistake. I even reported that. I don't know why I'm thinking that. He will pitch for Wichita on Tuesday. But I think they're going to ramp him up to get to where he can work in relief. I think that makes the most sense at this point. Not that added depth would hurt anything, but I just think the need is stronger right now in the bullpen. We haven't seen Paddock really work out of the bullpen in his career. He's got 1 appearance with the Padres, but that was in 2021. Otherwise, he's been exclusively a starter. Biggest issue with him in his big league career has been home runs. Again, like Varland, if you can neutralize that in the bullpen, that makes a pitcher like Paddock a huge, huge, huge asset. And then finally, Jorge Alcala began a rehab assignment, was touching the upper 90s, 97.5, 99. I think he topped at 99, touched 90, or touched 99, averaged 97.5, clean inning. And so if he can get back to, suddenly this bullpen, which I thought the Twins definitely needed to address at the deadline, looks like a strength as opposed to a weakness or something they're going to have to paper over. Now, before we go to break, the second thing the Twins need to do is determine if any amount of rest would be beneficial for Carlos Correa. Now, it comes down to the difference between staying in rhythm and, the fact that Correa has been better lately offensively. Do you throw off that rhythm in an attempt to rest his plantar fasciitis? I looked it up. Health Partners says it's good to rest. But you don't need to sit around for a long term. Movement is good. Their overall phrase was rest is best. But I got the sense that even just short bits of rest or bursts of rest could be helpful. Now, with that said, I think it would probably mean more along the lines of before or after an off day, and then that off day to get 2 days in a row. But, they need to get Carlos Correa up and going at a whatever his 100% is right now. We can all acknowledge it hasn't been a great season, but defensively, he's a huge factor for them, and he's still come up with some big hits, especially lately. So, yeah, determine if any rest will help him. But, other than that, you just play him as little as possible once the division is in the bag, which to me it is. But, they're not Correa. I think Correa, the competitor, is not going to want to sit down for at least a little while yet, but they'll structure it and make it work one way or the other. Our friends over at Gametime have this message to share with you. If you've ever been on the lookout for tickets, and I know I have, I'm sure you have, but if you are ever in need of a ticket or a pair of tickets and it's coming down to crunch time, trying to get to that Vikings game, that Twins game before the season ends. They got one more homestand coming up here. Gametime is the way to go. It is you download the app and you search your city and find events that are catered to your interests. I mean, there's concerts, all sorts of tickets, playoff games, Twins playoff games, which is incredible to think about. None of us really got to go to the 2020 playoffs, and the Twins haven't been back since. So we'll see how that goes. But if you want to get those too, Gametime is your place. It's the place for last-minute ticket deals. And the Gametime guarantee, this is a fun thing. You'll always get the best price. So if you find tickets in the same section and row for less elsewhere, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You get tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you are ready to go. Tickets go right to your phone. You don't have to dig through your email. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and make sure that you use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's all one word, all caps, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so we're coming out of our pause here into the bullpen. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. Come back. We're going to have a crossover on Tuesday with the Rays guys, at least one, if not both, talking about the start to this series, the first 2 games. If you want to catch game 2 of the series, Twins-Rays at Target Field on Tuesday, it's a 6:40 first pitch. Joe Ryan, former Rays prospect, facing Zach Littell, former Twin. And you can catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Twins. Now we are on to the 3rd and 4th things on our checklist that I think the Twins need to worry about and work on the rest of the way. Number 3, get some of the youngsters out of the funk that they're in. Matt Wallner is hitting 154 with a 333 on base and a 269 slugging percentage in September. Edouard Julien is hitting 182 with a 438 on base, which is hilarious when you consider a 182 average and a 222 slugging percentage. Now, those are 2 lefties that the Twins need to be concerned about, but at this point, they're not really hitting anybody. And so Julien had something like 10 walks between hits. They're going to need these guys swinging it better to make noise in the postseason. Certainly it's helped to have Alex Kirilloff back. We'll see if Buxton can make his way back. More on him in a little bit. Jorge Polanco on the bereavement list, but again, having him back is helpful. And the offense has been good in September. In fact, the Twins as a team have strong numbers across the board. It's just that the amount of playing time that's going to be afforded to a couple of youngsters like this means they're going to have to show up down the stretch. And I think Edouard Julien is taking too many called third strikes in spots where, just a little more aggression would be merited. It's not like it's that preferable to strikeout swinging versus looking. It's just a matter of, though, like he had a 3-pitch strikeout where he took a pitch more or less right down the middle on Monday. And it's like, yeah, Tyler Glasnow is nasty, but, what's the plan at the plate there? Because a plan to take isn't a plan. You can get a lot of walks by taking pitches, but it's not really a great strategy. And Ron Gardner once told me this: you're never going to walk your way out of a slump, and that was something I asked him in 2013 about Aaron Hicks, who, as many of us can remember, started his 2013 season just dreadfully before getting sent back to Rochester, and so I kind of think that applies to Edouard Julien here too, because even though he has a 438 on base in September, he's hitting a $182. He's slugging 227. That's just not going to cut it. He and Wallner both sub 700 OPSs. They got to get Alex Kirilloff going too. 2 for 11 so far after coming back from his issues as well. So Twins offense 840 OPS in general in September. So in general, I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining that their offense hasn't been solid. Just there are a couple moving parts that need to, they really need to carry their weight. In general, though, the team is playing well in September, 6-4 through the first 10 games, a 3.84 ERA and a $1.19 WHIP. So nothing too worrisome in those numbers. Just need to get some of the youngsters out of their funks and on the way to just being a little more productive here down the stretch. Number 4, figure out once and for all where Byron Buxton stands. So there was a brief bit of intrigue, and not good intrigue, on Friday when there was kind of like a breaking news alert that Byron Buxton was meeting with the Twins front office, medical staff, etc., to determine the next steps in his rehab. When in fact it basically said, yeah, they took him off his rehab and they're just kind of waiting to see what happens next. Played in 2 rehab games, patella tendonitis in his right knee. After those 2 games, played some outfield. So we'll see what happens. But at this point, it's, does he come back with a week left in the season in DH? Is he center field ready by then? I feel like the odds of him being center field ready by then are virtually zero if he hasn't been ready to this point and is dealing with another issue that has cropped up in the meantime. So to me, the best bet would be to get him back and have him DH. Who knows? If he gets on a heater during the playoffs, he could be the kind of guy who could carry them, even though this season, and especially lately, lately, like later in the season, his numbers have tailed off quite a bit. But it's a better team with him than without him, even if it's as a DH. And I know people will point to the numbers. Oh, he's not hitting. How can you have a good DH if they're not hitting? I still believe he brings an element to this offense of speed when he gets on, speed to take extra bases when they're there, singles into doubles. He's still shown the ability to ramp up and throttle down a little bit here. This year, obviously he's not Byron Buxton of old with the 30 feet per second sprint speed and all that fun stuff. But I still think he adds an element that a lot of other guys, nobody else in this organization does. So you got to figure out where Buxton stands. You got to get some of the youngsters out of the funks they're in. We'll come back for the final 2 here. And I don't think either of these are going to surprise you, but I think they merit discussing. Before we get to that, though, we do have to talk about our friends at Sleeper. Are you rocking with our friends at Sleeper yet? It's the playoffs are coming. Twins are going to be involved, as far as we know. And it means the clock is ticking, though, on your chance to claim 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball's never been more exciting. Julio Rodriguez with a big game tonight. You've got Ronald Acuna hitting homers and stealing bases like crazy. Shohei Ohtani doing fun stuff, even just as a hitter because he can't pitch. Mookie Betts doing his thing. Freddie Freeman hitting doubles for days. There's so much fun, exciting talent. If you want to pick more or less on stats for these guys for single games, homers, RBI, strikeouts, etc., you can do that and get up to 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit on the Sleeper app. Terms and conditions apply. Just make sure you see the app, and if you go on the app, you will see a Sleeper logo where you can see the terms and conditions. All right, so we're coming down the home stretch here. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We'll be coming back with a games 1 and 2 recap with the folks over at Locked On Rays. So hopefully there'll be a split. We can discuss, we can reminisce over how good Tyler Glasnow looked, and then maybe tomorrow how Joe Ryan looked. It's Joe Ryan and Zach Littell, Twins Rays, on Tuesday. It's a 6:40 p.m. You got your weekday. They're back on the 6:40 plan during the school year. So I kind of like those. I like the games getting done a little bit earlier. And also, too, the quicker games means that, it just means more time I can spend doing other things and still bring you the show. But if you want to catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app, just search Twins. The fifth point, and maybe the most important one, determine the playoff rotation. Now, I don't think I'm stepping out of line when I say that that Pablo Lopez will get the ball for the first game. Twins are going to be in position to line things up. Right now, they'll be, for all intents and purposes, they're guaranteed to be the number 3 seed. And so in that case, they'll be in a best of 3. And if that's the case, you go Lopez, Gray, 1-2, and hope you either swept, or if you go to a third game, I think a third game you would. Sorry, I'm distracted. The Giants just walked off the Guardians, so we are very excited here. Anyway, if they have a third game, that's where it gets tricky. Do you want Joe Ryan? Do you want Kenta Maeda? Do you want Bailey Ober? Ober made a start for Rochester. Not Rochester, St. Paul. I still think Rochester, because when I started covering the Twins, it was Rochester. No. Ober made a start for St. Paul, so he's not shut down. And who knows, maybe he could be in that bullpen role, multi-inning reliever. But I'm thinking the hope would be 2 starters. And if you need a third, you either go with Joe Ryan or you go with kind of that Johnny Allstaff approach, which I think anytime you have a third game clincher, same as if it's a 5th or 7th game clincher, you kind of put all your chips, push them into the middle of the table, and whatever it takes to get you there, gets you there. But if that's the case, depending on how much time off, then do you roll back with Joe Ryan in game 1 if you make the next round? Unclear. I don't know. But you can only really plan for the first series and then get through it before you have to make another decision. So in that case, Lopez, Gray, Ryan are the 1, 2, 3 for me. But I am curious to see, what is the plan for Bailey Ober? Because, again, he's not shut down. He's, he's still at that innings limit. It's not like that magically reset because he sat out a couple weeks. But I don't know what the plan is as far as if, because they've been so protective of him as a pitcher that, just putting him in a relief role with, inconsistent usage patterns, is that good for him? Is it better for him than making a start every 5th day and having the innings rack up? I don't know what the answer is. He went 5 innings, though, against Louisville on the 9th. So that would be, make sure I got my days right here, on Saturday. So if he was to stay lined up, he would be starting late this week. He only threw, let's see if I can get a pitch count here, 65 pitches. So to me, it's either a ramp up, which 65 pitches, 80 pitches, 95. That would put his next start with the Twins somewhere around the 20th or so. And that would make sense to me, because if he starts for the Twins on the 20th, makes, say, 2 more starts the rest of the way, and then they line things up, then it gets interesting, because then you have to decide Bailey Ober or Joe Ryan. And then if you move on to the next round, you probably need both. You probably need all 4 starters. So I'll be watching closely with Ober, because there's no denying he was good enough to be in the postseason rotation at his best this season. But even his season numbers overall, this is a guy who should pitch in the postseason for you if you believe you have a chance to win and want to put the best guys out there, which, it's the playoffs. Of course, that's what you want. So I'll be curious, because I don't think they want to go to Kenta as their number 4. So it really does put the Twins kind of in a spot where, they're not starting Dallas Keuchel in a playoff game. They're just not. It's not going to happen. So Pablo, Sonny, and then either Ober or Ryan. I'd love to hear from you guys. Would you rather see Bailey Ober or Joe Ryan start a game if there's a game 3 in the first series? Because I think in a do or die, I want Joe Ryan. But I'm not that confident, because I don't know, Bailey Ober also has kind of that, where I feel like I could trust him to go into battle and he wouldn't be in over his head. So I'd love to know, do you want Joe Ryan? Do you want Bailey Ober? Or do you trust Kenta Maeda? And then there's this, our final one. To put it simply, just clinch. Well, we've been talking here. The Guardians were walked off by the Giants. The magic number is 11. If the Twins simply do not lose the rest of their games this season, they should have a very, very reasonably easy path to clinching, possibly as soon as the next week, especially if the Guardians, who have a tougher schedule right now, continue to lose games. So need the Twins to show up against the Rays. Need the Twins to show up the rest of the season. You can't cruise to this thing, even though, playoff odds and all that are what they are. But, clinch. Spray the teammates with beer and wine or whatever, not wine, champagne, all that fun stuff. But you got to do it, and you got to do it. You got to not get ahead of yourself. We're talking about all these things, but before all else, clinch, baby. The magic number is 11. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. This has been a late night edition of Locked On Twins, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. Make sure you tell me who you want in your playoff rotation. I'm sure you want Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray. I think we can all agree. But do you want Joe Ryan making that third start? Do you want Kenta, Bailey Ober? Maybe you've got a whole different plan that's Louis Varland for 3 and Bailey Ober for 3. I want to hear it. Tell me. But with that said, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Twins. Follow us at Locked On Twins at Brandon_WARNEN. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Make sure to check back Tuesday. We will have a post-game crossover edition with the folks over at Locked On Rays. Subscribe, give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love a thumbs up and a subscribe. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with us. This is Brandon Warren signing off and saying thank you so much. And don't forget to stop by tomorrow.